So, given our current state and our issue, how do we change this? That's really the question. How do we get from where we are right now, how do we get students to actually engage in the classroom? How do we get students to actually take an interest in the topic? How do we get them to get what I would like to call or consider a deep, meaningful educational experience, one that builds motivation so that every day that you hold your class, they want to come. They want to be there. And my answer to that is it needs to start here with us. This is nothing that we can start at the state level. And in fact, I don't think that the state should be involved with that. Just my opinion. Sometimes I think the less involved that the state is with our actual educational process, the better it is for us, and the better ultimately it is for the students, right? Our end product, our end result. Now, obviously, there's got to be some sort of oversight. However, there may not need to be to the level and extent that we're at right now. We're going to do another little group exercise, and I have a question for you. And all I want you to do is on your pads of paper, I just want you to write down one word. So you're going to have to get together again in your groups. You're going to have to think about this. Here's the question that I have for you is how do we or what do you consider to be the most important thing, the most important factor in creating the proper environment in your classroom? Our group over here, you also chose comfort, but it seems to be Southern. So what have you got?
So we picked beer. No, we didn't really. We just decided that things should be fun. We're having fun here today, aren't we? Yeah, because we're interacting, we're learning about each other, and we're learning about things that are important. So we talked about, what was the word you used that you liked?
Oh, relevant.
Relevant, yeah, relevant was important. But as I said to Chris earlier, if it's not fun, they don't like to do it. And when I work with the elementary and middle school kids and high school kids, they come in the dark and they leave in the dark. They don't give them enough recess. You notice we got a break, a good break, right in an hour, which is way better. So it needs to be fun, it needs to be involving, and it needs to be a learning process at the same time. So.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Sally, very much. And then a beer after. That refreshments, I think, is what we called it. So our group in the back, what have? Oh, look at that, nice.
Yes, we also went with comfort. Yeah, we actually had ours up first, of course.
Oh, yes, of course.
Comfort was there was a vote off. We also had interest and buy-in were important terms that we were throwing around. Can I hear your directive on this one more time? Exactly what what the one word is for?
So basically, what was the most important thing or aspect or whatever you wanted to call it that you thought would create the proper environment for your students in the classroom?
Right. So with comfort, we're seeing more and more, like you were talking about earlier, with these, the millennials are now giving way to the next generation, Generation Next, whatever they're going to be called, creating that comfort classroom that they're used to, whatever has been successful for them. We watched a video at the Firehouse last night, Simon Sinek, about the millennial question and how you're seeing these kids that have this dopamine release associated with their phone, and we have that click that we just have to have that device in our hand or in our pocket. How do you separate that digital world from the factual world? And psychomotor that's coming from the North Country up there is critical. I think putting hands on and getting dirty. There's nothing better than walking off the drill yard soaking wet and covered in sand and know that you went out there and did a hard day's work. But understanding that hard day's work for these students is a lot more difficult. So yes, comfort, but also taking them out of that comfort zone, putting them in stress, deciding whether or not this is what they want to do, that's up to them. But we ran with a whole gamut of discussion, but really that word encapsulates it for us.
Okay, excellent. Nice job. Thank you. Our group up in the corner.
We chose vetting. Basically,
I'm sorry, you
vetting,
chose-
V-E-T-T-I-N-G.
Okay, vetting, yes.
Vetting the candidate. We all wish to have successful candidates, but the ultimate goal is to have a competent EMS provider to provide the care, being taught through a proper environment. Not everybody's made for this work, and that's the reality. And I think if you vet the candidates, just like how not everybody can be in the military to get through a boot camp, not everybody can be in the fire service or be a cop. EMS should be the same. I feel if you vet the candidates, why they wish to do this type of work, and you have the proper candidates, they'll understand, they will learn, and the North Country's idea of psychomotor is bang on. And I think if you have the proper candidates for this type of work, which is not easy, you'll have a higher success rate because you're already starting off with a possible successful candidate. Not somebody that wants to do this on a whim or I just want to help people. Yes, that's a noble intention, but this is difficult type work in the environment we work in. So I think that's what leads to success, is starting with the proper candidate.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. And then the mic is coming down, and we have our final group down here.
So of the words that we put up here, adaptability, balance, ambiance, flexibility, and accountability, I think I'll take the adaptability because it really spoke to all of the different things we talked about, being adaptable based on the demographic and learning styles that you have within your classroom, being adaptable in terms of changing your classroom to achieve that comfort that was already mentioned. That kind of goes with the ambiance. And helping people become accountable to their lessons. So adaptability in how we present material as well, and that's a big challenge for some of us, even many of us. So adaptability.
Okay, excellent. Oh, and a little more.
Just different perspective here. Buy-in was mentioned before. A little bit about where I come from. I teach high school for the last 20 years. I've taught chemistry. I run the fire program at the Cheshire Center for the last 3 years. So this generation that we're talking about and struggling with, that's my entire clientele. Buy-in is a huge problem, and I guess if I had to pick one, that's it. We talked earlier about us struggling with is this curriculum the right curriculum? Are we teaching students the right thing? So on one level, there's a buy-in that has to happen. We need to buy into what it is that we're teaching. And then the second tier, the second level, is that we need to get these students to buy in as well. It was mentioned, it was Gorham, I think, with the failure. It has to be a comfortable place for students to fail. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. Unfortunately, these students today don't understand that failure is a learning process. In fact, it's one of the most valuable learning processes. And I completely blame it on our educational system. We've never allowed these students the opportunity to fail. We don't tell them that they fail. We tell them, oh, it's okay, just keep going to the next grade, and maybe by the time you're a sophomore, you'll be able to read. So we really, I don't disagree with what Chris is trying to do here. We need to change our educational system. We need to tell kids, nope, you didn't get a trophy this time. Maybe you'll work harder, maybe you'll do something, improve something. And the last group as well, not everybody's cut out to do this. You know, in my program, it's a fairly new program. We've been going for 3 years, and numbers have been building, and I actually have too many this year. And I have too many only because half of them don't have that buy-in whatsoever. It's like, I think some people think the idea of being married is great, and then when they get there, they realize it's not for them. Many of my students think the idea of being a firefighter is great, but they're, as we mentioned, coming off sweaty and wet from the drill yard, they're not willing to put that in. So buy-in would be my word.
Okay,
Thanks
awesome.
for being foolish enough to give me the mic back.
Excellent. All of these go directly to what we're talking about, whether it's buy-in, whether it is adaptability or flexibility, comfort came up a number of times. Where every one of the things that we talked about goes into creating what we're hoping is the right or the proper environment for the student. And I think that we could actually even get that down to, and I think you've all mentioned it just in different ways, but that word. Okay? And this is one of the things that in education we consider to be fairly taboo to talk about, right? We don't talk about relationship in education. And in many cases, there are policies and all sorts of stuff about inappropriate relationships with your students. But we spend a lot of time focusing on can't have inappropriate relations, you can't do this, you can't do that. But we spend very little time about talking about what an appropriate relationship is with the student. James Cormer wrote that no significant learning can occur without a significant relationship. Right? I wish I had been smart enough to come up with that one all on my own, but I did not. Other people have come up with these, but I truly do believe in what he said, as does this person. This is Rita Pearson, and I'm going to give you the names of some other folks. You actually can go and watch them speak on TED Talks. If you've not been up on TED Talks a lot or recently or whatever, I'm going to give you the names of a couple of different speakers. And in my estimation, I think it's well worth the time. This woman is a firecracker, if you ask me. She is an educator in the inner city school systems in a larger city. And Rita talks a lot about relationship, and she was traveling around the United States talking about relationship and how important a significant relationship is. And to talk a little bit about what you were talking about, I want to emphasize it that not everybody can be a winner, right? However, we also can't go at the opposite end, to which is what we have been subscribing to a lot on the Fire Academy side, which is the yell and scream method of instruction, right? There's a balance, and we've got a pendulum that's over here that, ninth place ribbons for everyone, participation, right? And in fact, in talking with one of my colleagues, she also is an educator. She's a teacher in the school system. She actually has to give a certain amount of points just because the kids showed up. Like, oh, you're here. You're existing. Good for you. 40. Really? I get a 40 just because I'm breathing? Yeah, wait until I verify you've got a pulse. It's another 20 points for you. So that is, to me, that's a little bit extreme perhaps. But then we've got sort of the other side that we have subscribed to over the years, which is there will be no chance for failure. That is unacceptable. And when I have asked some of our instructors about that, why do you scream at these? Why do you kick their helmets across the drill yard? Why do you push them from behind in the A building? Why do you steal their equipment and then scream and berate them in front of the entire class? And the answer I always get is because this is a matter of life or death. If I don't teach them now, they will die in that building or they will kill other people with them. Which seems to be a very noble reason why they are so hard on their students. And so I said, so you truly believe that by physically pushing or kicking things and screaming and berating them and making them feel this big, that's educationally sound. That's going to teach them. They said, absolutely, they'll never forget that. That's why I would beg to differ just slightly. I do believe they're never going to forget the fact that you were a I'm pretty sure that they'll remember that forever. What they won't remember was what it was that you were trying to tell them, that they shouldn't be standing in the building that has all of the smoke, right? Or that they should have had their BSI on before they went in and they grabbed the person who had the arterial bleed or whatever it was. They're going to remember something, but it's not going to be what you want them to remember. And so, we have to bring that pendulum somewhere in the middle. Rita had a student, and she was teaching elementary school. So she's got a class, she's got 28 students or so. She has one student. She issues a 20-question exam. She gets it back. She grades it. This one student got 18 wrong. She put a smiley face at the top of the paper and put +2. She handed it back to the student. The student got the paper, took a look at it, and said, "Miss Pearson, is this an F?" And she said, "Yes." And he said, "Miss Pearson, why did you put a smiley face and a +2 on top of my paper if it's an F?" She's like, "Because you got 2 right. You didn't do all bad." Right? And so what she's trying to do with that student is she's trying to let him know that, yes, you failed. She told him, "You failed, that's an F. You didn't pass, you have to do that again." But she also left him with some encouragement. And she said to that kid, she said, "You know what? And I'll bet you if you go to do it again later on next week, you're probably going to try harder and you're going to do a better job, aren't you?" And because he didn't get berated and because he didn't feel like a piece of trash at the end of it, he said, "You know what? Yeah, I'll do better." And he wanted to do better also because he had a positive relationship with his teacher, right, with Rita. So if we want learning to occur in the classrooms, we have to, before we get to any other kinds of theories or deliveries or how we set anything up or the equipment that we use or other support, we need to start right at the very basic foundation, which is establishing a positive and an appropriate relationship in the classroom between the educator or educators and the students. And I would argue that that goes a long way to the comfort, or the Southern comfort over here, but to the long way to creating a comfortable environment, one in which failure is okay. I'm not going to say that failure is acceptable, but failure is okay. And in fact, failure is a significant way for students to learn in the classroom, as long as it's handled correctly and as long as they know that they did something wrong and they know how to go back and correct it and it's addressed fairly quickly with them. So failure can be a significant tool when it comes to educating the students as well as their success. And in fact, we know we're bringing students in that have never done fire, they've never done EMS. Some of them can't spell fire or EMS. Good for us, right? And we know that we're bringing in this age demographic that we call millennials. He says it makes up your entire demographic, and if they don't take the class with you, they show up in our classes, right? So we're seeing the same demographic. We're not millennials. We're Gen Xers. We have an entirely different outlook on life.
I'm not a Gen Xer.
I was being kind. Right? We have still in our educational ranks and in our municipal departments, private organizations, we have Gen Xers and we also have some baby boomer folks. Right? Every one of these age demographics have grown up in a different time period. We value different things. We were taught different things. With our millennials, right, now if they're told, get out of the house, do something, without supervision, all I want you to do is just disappear, please, for the day. That was an acceptable parenting method. Now it's abuse, because there's no guidance for the children and what might they do. I don't know, they might get dirty or eat dirt perhaps. That might actually build an immune system, I don't know, right? But something bad's going to happen to the poor millennials now. That part really isn't their fault. And this is not going to be a discussion on the different demographics and ages, but what we do need to recognize is the fact that the students we are receiving do not hold the same values, do not have the same experiences that we have. And whether we like it or not, this is our problem. We will have to deal with it. We, as educators in both fire and EMS, we will have to come up with the solution. They were not taught the skill sets potentially that they need to succeed in today's world. It is our responsibility now, we didn't ask for it, but it is our responsibility to teach them those skills. As an educator, it's your responsibility, it's my responsibility, it's the responsibility of this organization, being the Division of Fire Standards and Training and Emergency Medical Services to support you in the endeavors of teaching this demographic. We spend a lot of time saying, oh my God, they just don't appreciate anything. They don't appreciate anything that I tell them. They don't take chain of command into consideration. They're disrespectful. They can't talk. They can't communicate. They can't do anything. Listen, that was how they were brought up. They didn't necessarily have a say by going, Mom, I just want to make sure that you tell me I'm a winner every day of my life. And in fact, I want to make sure that you tell me that if I want something bad enough, all I have to do is just want it bad enough and it'll happen. And by the way, just make sure that I always get a ribbon every day. This was not the instruction sets that they gave to their parents, but this was what they were given. And so now, if this is what they know, they're going to come to your class in your setting, and that's what they're going to expect. They're going to get to the end of your program, you're going to fail and be like, I'm not an EMT? No. But I want it. Great. Come back again. Try it again. Right? They don't understand what do you mean? I wanted it bad enough, so I should just have it. No. That's not going to work here.
Leave no child behind.
That's right. That's right. Love it or hate it or whatever, we've been dealt a particular set of students. It is our responsibility to deal with that and to work with that and change it. Because at the end of the day, they are going to be on your departments. Because we're all still working in the field, right? They are going to be on your departments. You'll be working side by side with them. If you don't take the time and assist them with that, we will still have to pay for it in the end. And private businesses has realized this as well. Nobody asked for this, but this is what we've been given, right? So this is what we've got to work with. So Rita Pierson spends a lot of time talking about relationship, and I wanted to open all of the things that we talk about today with relationship, right? Just, a quick show of hands, like, how do we establish a positive relationship? Anybody? How do you do that? Trust. How do you form trust with them? Okay, this one might be difficult to capture, so we'll just go. So you have open communication. You allow the students to have a two-way conversation with you, and one in which they feel like they're not being berated, but they can actually ask you stupid questions, right? And who here has ever been told there's no such thing as a stupid question? Okay, those people lied to you. There are lots of stupid questions. You get them all the time.
The answer that you provide to them in the tone and the response and the respect and, to a degree, the tolerance. Yes, you can sit there and roll your eyes, but you got to make sure you hide it, because otherwise they're never going to ask that question and you've just shut them down.
Absolutely. And that goes towards creating a comfortable environment and establishing that relationship with them, that they feel like they can ask that question and they can ask other questions like it. Because, let's face it, there may be some really stupid questions that they ask, but wouldn't you rather them ask it in the classroom than wait until they're out on the bus in front of a patient and then ask that question and then just be like, stop talking. Good God, sit down, right? We want to take care of that in our educational setting first. We were in that same seat. Nobody popped out through the birthing process going, oh, I have got this. They all think they did. But nobody came out with all the answers. We had to learn it. Sometimes we learned it quietly, sitting in the back, we're like, whew, thank God I didn't ask that question. But you had that question. And these students have the same. And sometimes we get so far in our career, right? We don't even know how to talk to students anymore. We learned at that basic foundational level, and then we garnished experience, which is what we're supposed to do. We were taught in our subcultures how things are done in that department, and then we learned shortcuts, faster ways to do things, and it got into our muscle memory. Now, we just do it, we don't even think about it. Then we get back to the student who has none of that, and we look at them like, why are you so stupid? Well, I'm not really stupid. I just have no idea what I'm doing right now, and I was kind of hoping that you might want to share a little bit of that with me. And then sometimes we don't even know how to share it anymore. We don't speak student. We're so far separated from it that when we tell them it's at this level, but they can't understand it because they're at this level, now we've created a gap. So sometimes we need alternative methods to create scaffolding in that gap, and we're going to talk about how we can do that as well. Okay? But relationship, keep that in the forefront of your mind, and everything that we're going to do and that we're going to talk about, relationship is one of the big things. Okay?